in every single building, should be promoting all this work, should be telling you exactly what you need to do to get there.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jose Gonzalez. I'm a resident of 1701 Albemarle Road. Thank you for being here. We're here to talk about Local Law 97 and what a building like mine is contemplating in terms of the future, right? And I have to remind myself that this is February or March because it's unseasonably warm, and that's an indication of why this is so important. It's not just the fact that energy efficiency is going to make our energy bills lower, but that's not a bad thing. But primarily what we want to do is have a future, right, for everyone. And so I appreciate you all being here and seeing what we're doing. We're contemplating the switch over to use heat pumps. We're in very early stages. We're just discussing it. But if it weren't for the presence of this law, I don't think we would have the same urgency. It just made it real and made it something that we actually are talking about and contemplating for the future. And I think it's extremely possible. It's not easy, it's not cheap, but it's necessary. I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Borough President Reynoso. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Just want to thank everybody that's here and for buildings like this that actually want to contribute to the greater good that is not only our borough, our city, but our entire nation and our entire planet. Right. But it seems like there's a double standard in the work that we're doing to enforce Local Law 97. What we're seeing is an administration and the real estate lobbying effort to diminish the extent by which we expect buildings to comply with Local Law 97. What we're saying is that there is a crisis in our midst that we must address. And the best way to address that is by going over or going after the culprits or the infrastructure that causes the most harm and has the most carbon emissions. That's right. And we know that a lot of people think vehicles are the leader of carbon emissions in the city of New York, but it isn't. It's actually buildings. Buildings cause the most harm. Yeah. This law is supposed to solve for that. And we have folks like the ones that reside in this building that are willing to step up, contribute to the greater good, and do what is legally obligated of them to do. Amen. But you see, this building is special because they don't abide by a double standard like these larger real estate organizations or real estate companies do. Because the larger companies believe that they can be exempt of having to do the greater good, to be a part of the greater good, because they have money. They think that they live in a different world where environmental justice, they're not accountable for environmental justice. That's right. That money could exempt them from being a part of this conversation. And what we're saying is no. We're telling the mayor, we're telling this administration, and anyone that is going after watering down Local Law 97, that it is unacceptable. That just because you have money doesn't make you better than the people living in this building. That's right. These folks are making sacrifices, investments, and contributing again to fixing our issues related to our environment. Just because you have money doesn't mean that you can escape that. So we're here standing together as one, reinforcing that Local Law 97 is not a suggestion, it is not a policy, it is a law. And you are to abide by that law. And we should not be moving forward in this time of crisis with anything that would water down the safety, the sustainability, the insurance of our future for our children and for generations to come. So as the borough president, I stand here with everyone that is supporting this legislation, and just want to always end because we all come from a place of love. It's not to forget to spread love. It's the Bklyn way. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Borough President
Thank you so
Reynoso.
much. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Ariel Yusuf.
All right.
Oh, maybe someone from the comptroller's office.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Steve Fox. I'm the strategic organizer for environmental and climate justice at the New York City office of the comptroller. Part of my role there is to bridge the gap between the needs of the community and policies and actions our office takes to solve them. As the city's chief accountability officer, Comptroller Landers takes a long-term view in managing the risks facing our city, including the climate risks that threaten New York City's physical, social, and financial future. At the Office of the Comptroller, we're bringing our unique set of tools to confront the climate crisis. The era of climate crisis is already here, and we cannot let climate change move faster than we are. That's why we're proud to be the first large public pension fund system in the country to divest from companies that own fossil fuel reserves. We're committed to delivering a just transition from fossil fuels, standing up for New Yorkers who are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and advocating for just and equitable economic policy. One of the most ambitious climate laws in the country, Local Law 97, represents an unprecedented opportunity to achieve that just transition by dramatically reducing building emissions and creating tens of thousands of green jobs for New Yorkers. Comptroller Lander was proud to be an early supporter and co-sponsor of the bill when he was in the council, and remain grateful for the strong coalition of advocates who worked tirelessly for years to demand bold action, like some of the ones represented here today. But Local Law 97 will only be successful in achieving that bold climate action if we are successful in implementation. Let's be clear, this is a massive undertaking, and it's essential for serious action, serious carbon footprint reduction and getting a little ahead of myself, sometimes that happens. And great opportunities for cleaner air and job creation, but it's still a massive undertaking. Roughly 50,000 residential and commercial properties are covered, about 60% of built square footage in New York City. And roughly 20% of the highest emitting buildings will reduce emissions by 2024, and as I said, will reduce. And by 2030, roughly 75% of buildings. Now, effective implementation requires clear and timely rules and guidelines for building owners, sufficient staff at DOB and other relevant city agencies, and support for owners and for who need assistance, especially affordable housing and cooperatives. An appropriate mix of fines and incentives to ensure compliance and strong oversight of the system as a whole. We want building owners covered by Local Law 97 to be equipped with the tools and resources to implement retrofits and achieve compliance. To achieve this, existing teams at the Department of Buildings must be resourced with additional dedicated staff, so the city will never be the bottleneck in guidance or enforcement. The city must expend sufficient resources so that any building owner seeking assistance can be served by technical experts at the DOB and the Retrofit Accelerator, so that the city can provide building owners with a full suite of financial and technical assistance tools, from PACE financing to state incentives, to building owners seeking guidance on how to meet their emissions targets. Where building owners refuse to comply with the law, penalties will be necessary to address non-compliance. But we should keep in mind that the goal is 100% compliance, not fines for failure. In those instances where fines are collected, those penalties should go toward retrofits for affordable housing. A few months ago, our office put out a report, Cap the Credits, that outlines these recommendations, along with recommending that rec purchases, as I think our comptroller, Borough President mentioned before, we don't want people to be able to buy their way out of it. We don't want people to be able to not comply just because they have money to throw at this. So, I think these recommendations are a good place to start. What do you all think? Finally, strong oversight will be necessary to make sure that implementation is taking place with fidelity, that investments can be made as necessary, and where we can stay on track together to hit this ambitious but utterly necessary target. There's no time to delay, and everyone here is well aware of that. This is undisputable, but we need real action. We have a lot of work to do, and a united front is the only way to achieve meaningful progress. We know that the powerful coalition of advocates who mobilized to pass Local 97, many of whom are represented today, will continue to be just as resolute in demanding full throttle implementation. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Next up. Someone else. Okay. Tim? Tim Kemp from Food and Water Watch.
Woo! Good afternoon. My name is Tim Kent, and I am a longtime Food and Water Watch volunteer and a resident of Bklyn. Thank you to Borough President Reynoso and our Comptroller's Office, as well as our allies, New York Communities for Change, NIPERG, Triage, and others for being here today. We are here to send a strong message to Mayor Adams. Fully implement and enforce Local Law 97, New York City's Green New Deal for buildings. I became involved with Food and Water Watch because climate change is the greatest threat to all life on our planet and will only get worse if we do not act now.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Catastrophes like Superstorm Sandy and Hurricane Ida, which devastated New York, could become more frequent and only worse, further threatening our families and neighborhoods here in Bklyn. I also became involved because people offered a simple way to make change on a local level where you can feel your individual impact. The solutions, as shown by this building behind us, are simple. Implement and enforce a law that has already been created without gutting it. Mayor Adams says he wants New York to be a real world leader. Well, all he has to do is enforce a law that is already on the books. Stand with the people of New York and not the real estate lobby. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Thanks, Food and Water Watch. Next up, we have an architect and a practitioner, Ariel Youssef.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us, and it's great to all gather here to speak. I'm Aya Youssef. Thank you. I'm Aya Youssef with Perkins Eastman and with the American Institute of Architects. As the Borough Commissioner just mentioned, buildings sort of like account for 70% of the emissions, greenhouse emissions affecting New York City. So Local Law 97 significantly will help to cut back these emissions. The goal is to get properties over 25,000 square meters, make investments in energy upgrades, and reduce their greenhouse emissions by up to 80% by 2050 and 40% by 2030. We recognize that it is a challenge for a lot of building owners, but it is doable. Buildings should cut their emissions, like our host and the building behind us are trying to do. In the levers to achieve this, the goal would be to, make sure that there is an appropriate balance between incentivizing owners to be able to make these efficiency upgrades. Energy efficiency upgrades that buildings and landowners can employ include addition of solar panels to their buildings to help generate on-site energy and potentially sort of like get their reliance on the energy grid that much less. Upgrades to heating and air conditioning systems, and installation of more efficient windows, and convert building systems from gas to electricity. This doesn't all have to happen all at once. There are strategies that building owners can work with their architects and their professionals in the industry to sort of come up with a strategy that works over time. As 1701 behind us is trying to do, they've been having these conversations, and part of it is getting the law helps people to start to engage in these conversations as to what's possible, with more and more emphasis and more introduction into this this realm. Technologies are going to continue to evolve and develop. So I think the pressure to sort of like keep the focus on achieving this law, staying to the true nature of what it intends to do, is by all means necessary. And if there are fines that are going to be sort of like enforced, I think there needs to be it should be equally attractive to make these upgrades as disattractive to get into sort of like going the route of fines. So level the playing field so that it's much easier to enforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Riel. Next up, we have Damian Andrade from NYPIRG.
Hi everyone, my name is Damian Andrade and I'm a student at CUNY Brooklyn College and a member of NYPIRG. We're a student-led organization representing college students all over the state. I'm studying political science and I'm interested in higher education, housing, sanitation, and climate change. Issues like air pollution, expensive utility bills, and affordable housing affected me, my family, and a lot of people in my neighborhood in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Local Law 97 is exactly the kind of world-leading policy that can launch thousands of green jobs and make our homes safer, cleaner to live in. My whole family, myself, my mom, my 2 sisters, my brother, all have asthma. We worry about the impacts of rising sea levels and sewers that overflow in storms while paying through the roof on utility bills. Local Law 97 is one of the best tools New York City has to improve air quality, and energy-efficient buildings can save people money. Lower utility bills is important for my neighborhood, and it's important for New Yorkers throughout the city.
That's right.
That is why we, college students, are here today to see a real benefit that Local Law 97 will give to tenants here in Flatbush and across Brooklyn and throughout the 5 boroughs. We're calling on Mayor Adams to take notice and fully implement Local Law 97. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I don't think we have another speaker, unless someone's volunteering. I don't think so. I appreciate you guys coming over, hanging out for a minute. And just want to say, group photo. That's what I wanted to say. Oh, sure.
What steps can a building like this right now take? Because I think a lot of people are standing by and they want to see, like your organization, want to see the enforcement angle of things. But if you're sitting in your co-op or your rent stabilized building, how can you take action to start getting ready for this?
Well, I think what's happened is the conversation and the steps, the research, finding a provider of the service to just give you an idea of what you can do. I think one of the things that we've been contemplating is just switching over the production of hot water to electric, which is not as expensive. You don't have to do the entire thing all at once. So there's definitely things you can do now, but you have to have the conversation. You have to start thinking about where you're going to be in 80 years.
Correct, and you have to sort of you have to look at the big picture, as he's mentioned. Have the conversations with the specialists, and get in touch with architects, engineers, even providers of solar panels and whatnot. But what you do not want to do is do it piecemeal. So if you have the conversation and look at what is available to you, and then have a phased strategy for achieving it. It is expensive, and there are also people that help you navigate what the city and the state can offer in terms of financial incentives. So there are grant programs available. So those are things that once you have the conversation, you're able to sort of engage and then start. So like I mentioned, start with sort of just changing out the windows, right? Or taking a building system off of producing the boiler running all year round, so you can sort of phase that off, and so there are ways to go about doing that.
And just a part of it is that the city of New York should be assisting all buildings into figuring out what systems they need to put in place to achieve these goals. If we really want to get to satisfying or following through on the Local Law 97, the buildings department should be in every single building, should be promoting all this work, should be telling you exactly what you need to do to get there. Right. There's low-hanging fruit, like changing windows, solarization, heat pumps, geothermal opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities to do this. And I want to be very careful about this notion that it is expensive. It is. But long term, the savings and the opportunities that exist in these buildings are meaningful. It means your light bill will be much less. It means that your water bills or your heat there would be much less. The savings that you have in the winter when your windows are replaced, or in the summer when they're replaced, it doesn't get too hot, it doesn't get too cold, all lowers your bills on utilities. But also the sustainability of your building. Your actual building will be getting upgrades. It won't deteriorate, or the deterioration would be longer. All those things are helpful to the building itself. None of that includes the contributions that building is going to make to lowering carbon emissions for the city of New York, for Brooklyn, and for the United States. But again, the main issue here is if we were serious about actually following through on this law, the number one advocate and proponent to this work would have been DOB, DCP. There would be an initiative having folks go building a building. It's like, we want to have a conversation now so you could be ready, so this doesn't affect you or doesn't surprise you when we get closer to the date of implementation. Any other questions? Any other questions?
NYC Accelerator too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Antonio, mention NYC Accelerator because they provide free guidance
So-
to property owners.
So we have NYC Accelerator. So the thing here is that these are constituent initiated conversations. If you want help, you can go and find help versus the city being proactive about its help. So the NYC Accelerator is somewhere that you can go to get information, and before even this law was passed, is where you can get information about thinking about these conversions for your buildings. So please, if you're interested in, please reach out to the City of New York, to the New York City Accelerator on their website, nyc.gov. So that's us being proactive and looking for help. We are going to be pushing the city to be providing the help proactively instead of reactively. We want them to be in these buildings. They should be reaching out to this building and having a conversation with its board about how they can help them through it. And like we just talked about, there are grants, initiatives, and opportunities at the federal, state, and city level that we could all be taking advantage of to cut the costs on a lot of these concerns that we have or issues to modify these buildings. Anything else?
Can we do a group photo all together?
Yeah, we can. Are we good with questions? All right, thank you guys so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your question.
Let's do a group.